What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. So today gonna be doing a back video, but I'm just gonna be going over more so my tips and tricks of how I get a better mind muscle connection, right? Whether it's in my lat pull downs in a row. I'm just gonna be showing you guys some of the cues I use and some of the things I do in my warm-up sets that really just help me get the mind muscle connection going. Because I know for a lot of people that's a big problem they have when they're training back, is that they have such a hard time actually connecting with the muscle they're trying to work, right? You feel your biceps, you feel your forearms, you feel everything else but your back sometimes. So I'm just gonna give you guys some of the little tips and tricks that I have and that I use to help me get a way better connection to my muscles. And it really, the mind muscle connection in turn leads to a better pump and a better workout. So with that being said, I'll catch you at the gym. Let's go.
All right, so my first tip or trick, right, is, at least for me, is to start with some sort of unilateral back movement. That way you can focus individually on each lat, right, and just really focus on a good stretch, a good squeeze, and really just dial in those lats before you get jumping into your big boy movements, right? And I usually like to start with some sort of cable movement, right? It's like on these. That way I can get a deep stretch with a super tight contraction. And it can be super slow, super controlled with tension the whole way through, which is why I usually start with a cable movement. But if you want to start with something like this, right, the key for me, the couple of cues that I use, drop the shoulder for any cable row, right, when I'm trying to really target my lat, is drop the shoulder, keep a slight bend in the arm, and then when you pull back, almost act like you're trying to tuck your elbow into your pocket, right? And then nice and slow on the way back out. Same thing. Helps you really focus in on that lower lat, a really good mind muscle connection, while still staying steady, slow, and controlled. And another thing too, right, is I'm like, okay, I start with the unilateral movement, but I don't burn myself out on this. This is just to really get the mind muscle connection started for the lift. So like this is my first working set here, and I'm gonna get like 15 to 20. And it's gonna be close to failure, but not quite failure. Just because I'm trying to really focus in on feeling my lats, because I've always struggled to feel those bad boys. So I like to start with a super light unilateral for 1 to 2 sets. Whatever it takes to really connect with your lat and get ready to go push some weight on a bigger compound. But just to recap, right? So start with a unilateral, and I like to go super slow and controlled for 15 to 20 reps, 1 to 2 sets. Key things to think about: first, drop the shoulder, right? Second, staying square to the bench here, super important. And then third, tuck the elbow into the pocket, right? Really helps you feel and engage that lower lat way better. So I'm about to hit one working set here, and then I'm going to move over to lat pull downs to really start trying to move weight and actually fatigue the muscle instead of just connecting with it and getting a little blood in there. So, all right, so next up for me is going to be seated rows. And on these guys, and honestly on any of your movements, start with one warm-up set, right? And it's not necessarily to like actually get the muscle warm. It's more so just get comfortable with the movement, right? You don't just want to jump into something cold, not ready to handle it. So that's another big thing you can do to help that mind muscle connection, is just start with a super lightweight, right? Get yourself dialed in, kind of where you're going to be, and then see how it feels, right? Test it out, play with it. And on these, I like to stretch it more forward. And when I pull and contract, I kind of almost like to be upright, maybe a hair leaning back, because I just think that's what helps me get the best connection to my lats on these. Also, I grab, as you can see, higher up on the handle here. I don't like to grab low. I like to grab high, and I put my thumbs on top. And then as I lean forward, I keep just a slight elbow bend, nothing crazy, right? And then I pull right at the belly button with my thumbs, try and drive those elbows back, bring the shoulder blades together and squeeze. And then I super slow and control on the way back. Just like that, right? And this helps me get a super deep stretch, great contraction, and feel my lats working and handling that weight the whole way through the movement. So doing my little warm-up set here, which feels good. I can feel everything in my back that I want to be feeling. So I'm going to bump the weight up and jump into a working set so you can see what that looks like. Another thing too on these, which isn't necessarily mind muscle connection related, but it's just movement related. If you can avoid touching that weight back down to the stack, stop it just right before. Because you keep constant tension on your back throughout the movement instead of setting that down. And then you lose that tension, even for that brief second. Like, you know, those little minimal 1% of differences here and there are what add up every 365 days. So those big differences in your physique is just the little differences like that, you know, little cues like earlier where it's like, okay, think, drive the elbow, drop the shoulder, changes how you feel the movement entirely. So you're always growing and progressing in the gym, and in your mind muscle connection, as crazy as that sounds, like you unlock new levels of mind muscle connection over time. You'll feel it deeper, tighter, in a different area. Like it's always something you can strive for and push to be better at and grow in is your mind muscle connection and just the quality of your movements. It's always an area of improvement for everyone. I don't care who you are, there's always something to learn, always something you could fix, always something you could do that's better for you and your body. Because some people, you know, they might drop the shoulder and tuck the elbow and be like, oh man, that kind of hurts my shoulder. So maybe that's not the greatest cue for you, you know? It's all individual based. Another thing too, I didn't even think to mention, but like when I don't do some sort of unilateral to warm up, I have a way harder time feeling my left side or my left lat than my right. Whereas like if I was to just jump into these before doing those, I would feel it all in my right and like not in my left. So also starting with the unilateral is a great way to help with those like almost mind muscle connection imbalances where you can feel it better on one side than the other. Next up is the infamous lat pulls. And for me, I've always had a very tough time feeling the exercise in these. So I kind of play around with a couple of different things, right? One is grip width. Second is the bar I use. I'll kind of play around and I'll switch between something like this versus the flat bar versus hooking up two D handles at the top and doing it that way, or using the same attachment I just used for skid rows. It just kind of depends on if I'm able to feel it good that day or not in my first set. And then if not, I kind of play around and adjust from there. But so what I'll do, I go a little wider than shoulder width, right? And I get down on that seat, basically get into a calf raise. And then you can adjust too. Do you sit more far forward, right? Waist scooted in. And do you pull down from there? For me, I feel that all lower back. Whereas if I back up on the seat and I almost pull down and then back, that's where I really get to feel it in my lats. Again, try and tuck those elbows into your pockets, right? For me, that's how I get the best mind muscle. And then obviously the super deep stretch like this. But this doesn't really change a lot, right? So once you get to there, you can bring it right back down. So up, good, back down. You don't need that extra inch of shoulder stretch. You don't gain anything else in the movement from doing that. So jump into my first working set here just so you can see what it looks like. Another key thing I thought about is lighten your weight if you aren't feeling it. Like, don't let ego take away from you getting a quality lift in. The mind muscle connection is going to add way more value than you pushing the extra 30 pounds. So that's another key point to keep in mind when you're hitting these. So I'm taking my own advice here, right? I just hit a set at 140 and I hit it for like 6 to 7 of quality reps. But I just didn't quite get as deep as I wanted with as tight of a contraction as I wanted. So I dropped it to 125 just to show that like doing that is going to garnish way more results than not. All right. So this next exercise here that I'm doing is just a variation of a row. I do it with ropes. I do it on a cable, and I'll show you what it looks like in a sec. But this is another good one that you can either A, start with, or B, put towards the end of your workout, because the stretch and like the contraction on these isn't as crazy as the stretch, but it's just a really good way to start to A, either feel those lats in your back or to finish it out, right? So go ahead and show you here kind of what that looks like. So I get pretty far back. I put the cable at a bit of an upper angle from where I bend over, right? So I get down, that way I can lift it up and stretch those lats, and then I pull back and through, and then I keep elbows bent, slow control, back and through, slow, stretch, 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 stretch. This might be the best exercise for a stretch that you can do, because there's just nothing that gets me stretched in this position with this much tension on my lats. So it's arguably my favorite time under tension exercise for lats. But with that being said, I'll jump into a working set here that we can kind of see the tempo and the pace of it. But like also when you're doing these, right, don't just roll your shoulders up and forward. Hold all that tension through your lat, right? So as you're going forward, lean down as the arms come up. Keeps the lat activated and tight the whole time. It's amazing. Maintain control. I mean, this will just get your lats firing on all cylinders. Holy. I've also recently kind of started to figure out that, like, for me, going lighter and slower on back is how I feel it better. If I just move weight around on back, I don't feel it in the target muscle at all. So that could just be another problem. If you're not feeling it great in your back when you're training, slow down the movement, lighten the weight, just see how that feels, you know, because I've had such a hard time connected with my back for such a long time. And just, you know, in the past probably 7 or 8 months, me slowly adjusting my training style a little bit has significantly helped my mind muscle connection. It's helped my progress in all my weights, and I've seen so much more growth since I've switched up to doing a slower controlled movement for all my back exercises. So, I mean, there's clearly something to be said about that time under tension and having that extra mind muscle connection throughout the entire movement. All right, so next movement I'm doing is just bar lat pull over, but with a cable. I don't know what the name of the exercise is. You'll see when I do it, but again, on this one, I like to go slow, controlled. And for these, it really helps me engage my lower lat, right? And how I do that is, again, I lighten the weight and I try and get some more reps, but I come down. And again, I like to have it up higher so that I can deep stretch at the top. Then when I pull through, I almost tuck the elbows back. And it really helps me just engage the lower lat, keeping the elbow bend through the top. Boom. Doing that really helps me connect with that low lat, which is going to give you that nice big sweep when you hit that lat spread. It's going to give you that lower bubbled out look, in addition to that upper part of your lat that flares out under the armpit there. You're also probably looking at this like, wow, this guy does a lot of exercises for back. I do, but I'm not doing a ton of sets for each exercise, just because for the purpose of this video, I wanted to show a couple of exercises and just talk about some little cues that I use and do when I'm training to help me connect with that lower lat more. So yeah, I'm doing 2 sets on everything here, 2 to 3, except for my very initial warm up where I only did 1 of those cables, and that's just to really get the mind muscle connection there and get some blood into the lats. But I'm not doing a crazy amount of volume like it's going to look like in the video. I'll hit about probably 12 working sets today, which is all you need. If you're taking them hard to failure with a good intensity, I mean, that should be more than enough to grow your back. I also want to premise that I am a personal trainer, but some of these tips and tricks that I'm showing you might not work for you, like they might not make any impact to your mind muscle connection. So don't be afraid to play around with stuff and change the angle, change the grip, change the tempo. Like, there's so many different ways you can change up a set slightly with these minimal little changes that might be a night and day difference for your mind muscle connection to your back when training. So don't be afraid to just play around with stuff and try some new stuff out. All right, boys. And then just to finish out the day, I like to do assisted pull-ups. Kind of hits the whole back. And I do a super slow eccentric on these just to really force the blood in there. But again, on these, as you're going down, right, just feel the stretch in those lats, and then on the way up, pull everything through them. Tuck the elbows, right, back almost into your body like you're trying to touch them together behind your back. It's the craziest lat contraction you're ever going to get. It makes a world of difference, right? So watch here as I get down. So super slow, fully stretched, and then I touch my lats, or my elbows, sorry. Boom, just like that. And that's how you're gonna get a crazy connection to the back muscles during this movement. All right, party people. So that was kind of just my tips, tricks, cues that I use when I'm trying to hit a nasty back day. And it's a lot, and I know it can be overwhelming, especially if you're a newer lifter, but like just telling yourself those things every time before your set, right? Okay, think this, think that, connect. Okay, think this, think that, connect, okay. You know, just constantly repeating that to yourself throughout the movement until you get comfortable with it. And then it just becomes second nature. And you'll start hitting better lifts, you'll start seeing better progress, all from just these little tweaks that you're making and that you're making a conscious effort to do. It's going to make a world of difference in your training. It's going to make a world of difference in your physique. And it's just about staying consistent and really trying to focus in. You know, like you see so many people just sitting on their phones, just talking, like not really focused on the movement and what they're doing at that time. So if you can just lock in for 30 seconds to a minute, that's all your set really is. It's 30 seconds to a minute. That's all you have to lock in for. And think about those cues. And I'm telling you, the results you're going to see and the intensity of your training is going to go through the roof. So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you learned a thing or two. If you did, tell me what you liked down below the best. And if there was a new movement that you saw me doing that you haven't tried, that you tried and were like, whoa, that was awesome, shout out down below, because I like to hear what you guys have to say, what you like, what you don't like. But please leave a like, comment, subscribe. Have a great day, everybody.